Okay, just a little demonstration of feather sticks. Put a piece of wood at the bottom so that I'm not going to slip off and hit the stone floor and knack on my blade. I'm just using a bit of scrap wood because that's all we could find today. Over at home, not out in the bush. Just basically sliding your blade up and down a piece of wood. Now that's at a shallow angle to the wood, so not like that, but flat like that. You just angle it up a little bit until you feel the sort of wood underneath bite, and just gently holding the knife firmly, not really digging in. And then you get all of these. Okay, and because they have a larger surface area, they catch a flame, and they're also thinner. So they'll catch a spark and hold a flame as tinder, very easy. As long as you're using dry wood to do this with, they'll work perfect. There's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. Then you just do this a few times. And it doesn't matter if you get single pieces that fall off. They don't have to be all stuck together. As long as when you pile them up you've got a nice little bundle of curly bits that will take a flame. That's the only key thing that matters. Yeah, it's kind of what you're aiming for. It's really easy to do, just a nice thing, just sort of practice. Once you've made a lot of those, you know, just pop them in a tinder bag with maybe some birch bark peelings. Always handy to have. You can put other things in there, but we tend to stick to birch bark because it has its own sap in it, which acts like an accelerant. So that also helps keep the fire lit. You can use the dust off a piece of birch bark to catch a spark from a ferro rod. It's also another good way of starting a fire, but everything really for that has to be dry. In our kind of atmosphere that we're in the UK, especially this time of year, everything tends to have a high amount of moisture in the air, in the wood. Everything gets damp, nothing's perfectly dry. So then lighting a fire becomes a pain in the absolute behind. It really does. But we have ways of getting around that one. And we have kind of other versions of accelerant, as it were, that I think within the bushcraft world, in a moist, damp environment, are acceptable to use. Not really that anything isn't acceptable to use, but you wouldn't carry a big can of petrol out into the forest with you to use as a fire starter, unless you've got some major issues. So yeah, that's basically feather sticks. That's used for tinder, for helping to start your fire. This is one stage of the fire making business, the fire making sort of, what would you call it, process. Yeah. Basically, another part of the process is when you've chopped your wood up, to chop it into, you know, small usable pieces like this, all roughly about the same kind of size. Okay, just chop them up. And we've used bits of fencing, unfortunately, because we didn't have branches, but the principle is exactly the same. Went out in the, you know, your forest, collect a load of loose twigs together that have been up off the floor then the wind tends to, you know, wick away all that moisture and keep them drier longer. Basically, the rule of thumb is, don't know whether this is going to work. When you're out in the forest and you find a lot of twigs on the floor, and you pick them up. If when you break them, you get that nice crack sound like that, you then are guaranteed that they're going to be dry. If they don't make that crack sound, then they're not dry. You're going to have a nightmare of a time. But yeah, pick up loads of twigs, little tiny, like thinner than your little finger type size twigs. Get loads of those together, and that will then help start and be the base of your fire to then go with your curls and whatever accelerant you choose to use.
Yeah.
That's basically how you start a fire. That's one of the keys. Basically, the trick is with any fire to go up in gradients of size of fuel. So you start small and thin, easy to catch a spark, and you go up to your smaller, really tiny twigs. They then catch a flame and hold a flame because there's a little bit more fuel in them. And then you build up the size to maybe the, you know, little finger-sized twigs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go from there to perhaps your thicker finger.
Yeah, fuck you too, eh?
Thicker finger-sized twigs. Yeah, like maybe thumb thickness. And you just build up from there. But yeah, that's your curls and the smaller twigs and the sort of snap dry sound. Certain little things you want to be looking for and stuff you want to be using when you start out. We'll move on from this to looking at our firelighting kit and what's in that and what we constitute as our firelighting kit. It's a good place to start for anybody, so we'll hop over to that in a second. Okay, and basically here is a tobacco tin. Okay, it's the most non-offensive tobacco tin I could find, and within that I have managed to procure a back scratcher, basically a telescopic rod that had a back scratcher on the end, and you just break the back scratcher bit off and it gives you then a telegraphic pole. Okay, tube, bit like a car aerial. What we use that for is as a fire blower, so you can aim this at the bottom of the fire, blow down it, and you can get then oxygen at the bottom of a fire that might be struggling, but you're not getting your face too close to the fire that you burn your eyebrows off. With that, you've just got a simple ferrocerium rod, and then you have the steel striker that goes with it, and I've just connected them with a bit of paracord.
Or you could use the back of your knife, but
Right, and I was just going to go and show from there what we have as a backup in case you lose that, something breaks, or you put it down, you lose it, you can't find it. We then have modified this, which we have shown in other videos, where we've got an antler handle ferrocerium rod, and you then use the 90-degree spine on the back of your knife to then scrape down like that down the ferrocerium rod, and that then creates your sparks. Okay, I always find having several or a couple, two on me, two on Matt, we're never really going to lose or be without a ferrocerium rod. I think a ferrocerium rod of any style is going to be helpful and I think useful in a hell of a lot of circumstances. If you haven't got matches, your matches have got wet, you've lost a lighter, or it's broke, or it's run out of fuel, you've got a ferrocerium rod. They last an absolute lifetime. Okay, so those, perfect. And if you can't get one of that's kind of that fancy, just a bog standard simple one, I think they're only what?
a couple of quid off the internet, yeah.
Probably not much more than £5 or £6 off Amazon.
Because you can get
Dead simple.
there's two different types. There's the ferrocerium and then there's the magnesium, and you can get a mix of both. So you get ferrocerium and magnesium,
And it works.
50-50.
Yeah, it works exactly the same as the knife when you're just using the steel edge on there, that piece of metal. You're just running that down as well. Some might argue that edge is sharper and works better.
Or you can go for the
You know what I mean? It's up to you.
go for the traditional flint and steel, which is much
Yeah.
harder to use.
And then basically, so from the fire blower to the ferrocerium rod to then a money bag full of cotton balls. Now, mixed in with these cotton balls, there's petroleum jelly, which can be used for many, many different things. And what you do is you tease apart the dry cotton ball when you buy them from, say, a beauty shop. Only about £1 for 200. And basically you tease them apart and you daub the ends of your fingers in a big dollop of petroleum jelly, and you rub that into the cotton ball till it's like thoroughly mixed in. And you just roll your cotton ball back up. That then has cotton and petroleum jelly, which then will stay lit, I'd say, for what? Probably about a minute and a half.
And then what we do before we stick them in the fire lay is you fluff them out.
Yeah. So then the cotton fibres then will take a spark. So not every single cotton fibre is coated in petroleum jelly, but pretty much. But you tease it apart so it's like a bit of a mix.
Fluff them out like that.
And then poof, when you light it, up it goes.
You can see that in the camera.
I'll zoom in and I'll light it on there if you want. We can spare one.
I'll have to just pick the camera up because...
Oh, that's okay. Can you see that okay, yeah?
Yep.
Look at that.
There you go.
One strike, boom.
And then see how long it burns for.
That's going to leave a burn mark on the flag, isn't it? But you see how long that's holding an actual flame for? That gives you plenty of time to then pop those on, which we'll show you in the chimney here shortly. But that's just an example of how you light, and how easy it is, to light a cotton ball. And I think that's long enough for most people in most scenarios to light a fire. And even when you see like most of the cotton is actually burnt away, you are still left with a flame because it's still burning away on the petroleum jelly that's left behind.
Yeah, so say with a bow drill, the ember that you're going to produce from a bow drill is going to go out pretty quick, so you've got to rush like hell to get your fire lit. But with this, you've got plenty of time.
Yeah, I think it gives you plenty of time. I mean, still lit. You can say that's a flame, and we've never had it let us down yet.
Nope.
And okay, it's not very using your environment kind of bushcrafty, but it is a very, very useful tip when you're out in the woods to use certain tricks like this. They kind of hedge your bets a little bit, which always helps, and especially considering we live in a damp environment in the UK, it's horrible most of the time.
Yeah, and if you're going to try more traditional ways of lighting fires like birch bark, things like that, and
We will show that. Not today.
they're all good and great planning to do those things, but when you get to your location and it's wet or whatever, and you can't use those materials, you need to have something that you can rely on.
And you can't always guarantee
Because-
when you get to an environment that there's going to be
No,
birch trees.
because
to
the
start
thing
with.
with bushcraft is doesn't matter how much you plan, doesn't
Right.
matter how much you prepare, you will always end up in a situation that you never planned for.
Circumstantial, isn't it?
And you don't want to be in a real survival situation, so to have a proper backup or something to rely on is a smart move to make. And don't let anybody else tell you any differently.
No, you're not going out to
It's not a
play survival.
It's not a competition.
No.
You don't get more brownie points for, nearly dying more than somebody else. It's about preparing yourself for going out.
Yeah.
You don't want to be stuck in a situation where you're wet through and you can't get a fire going. You really don't want that.
So you try to
So-
help avoid that without obviously taking, a hot tent stove with you, which in my view really isn't kind of bushcrafting, because you are guaranteeing yourself a heat source, you're guaranteeing yourself a surface to cook on, you're guaranteeing that you're warm and cosy in your little tent. I mean, it's all good and great to try it, but that in its own field is what I call hot tenting. and that's something different. That's not quite bushcrafting. A lot of people mix bushcraft with hot tenting, which again is fine. But this is basically where you go out into the woods and you're just simply carrying one little small tin like that. Will help you on your way, regardless of situation, to get an open fire going so you can cook, boil water and keep warm. Now if you don't want to use that, and you don't want to use the cotton balls and you want to use birch bark because it's in abundance around you where you're camping, great, go for it, have a go, give it a go. If it works, no need to get the tin out, brilliant. But if you find, like Matt says, you're stuck and you've tried that and it's just not happening for you, if you know you've got that in your bag as a backup, you know that you're not going to freeze, you know you're not going to go hungry.
And this is coming from personal experience because
Yeah.
on one of our very first trips we decided to try out tarp tenting, and we went up to a very bleak remote place in Derbyshire near us, and we checked the weather forecasts for days before we set off.
Good.
It'd give out perfectly nice weather. We turn up at the place to start us hike into the location, and fog came in. It was cold as ice, and it started raining, and
Just changed.
we didn't.
Wow.
I don't think we had waterproofs with us.
No.
We got to location and everything was drenched, and we couldn't get a fire going. So we literally just sat there freezing his tits off in the tent.
Well, we threw up the tarp tent pretty rapidly,
Yeah.
threw the bags underneath to keep them as dry as possible while we were pegging everything out. There was a fire pit nearby, because people had been there before. It was a place we knew people had been, so we thought, oh, okay, yeah, might be okay.
And we tried and tried and tried
Oh,
to get
God.
a fire going, and we
About
just
an hour,
couldn't.
hour and a half, I think we tried to get a fire going using all the techniques we'd learned, and it just was not happening, and we hadn't got certain things to help back us up. Now, if we'd have had those, we probably would have been in with a chance. I mean, along the way, since then, that was a couple of years ago, we have learned other skills to help us, find dry wood, splitting wood down and using the inner core of a log is going to be drier than the outer core. It takes a hell of a lot of rain to soak right through a thick log of wood to get to the centre to make that wet. So if you can split your logs down using an axe, get to the core of the wood, split that down into thin bits, you've got some dry wood to then go at and start your fire with. Whilst your fire's warm and just starting, you can then start to dry out those outer bits that you cut off. Therefore then it kind of starts going and it all goes for you. But we didn't know those skills back then. We were stuffed, we just sat there freezing. It was horrible.
Yeah.
But we stuck with it and we didn't give up, and that's, I think, another thing, down to your own personal spirit, to just not give up and keep trying these different things. And there's, on YouTube, as you know, plenty of videos to learn from, plenty of other people's experience, So, from there, what next?
Well, what we'll do is we'll do more feather sticks, and then we'll come over to the chimney here, and we'll show you how to make a fire lay, and we'll probably talk about different types of fire lays when you're out in bushcrafting, and we'll show you how easily you can get a fire going with the fire kit that we've made for ourselves.
Yeah, you see here the little curly bits on the tree. That's what we collect and peel off. It's already kind of peeling itself. We take all that off. Does the tree no harm. We collect it in bags and then use it to start fires with. The resin in the bark is probably one of the best fire starters, the natural fire starters that I've used. We do also use cotton balls with petroleum jelly on, mixed in, rubbed in. Makes a very good fire starter. Okay,
We're back.
so I nipped off, completely forgot to grab the tinder bag. Now I just made this out of a bit of a leather jacket. Just cut a big piece circle and then loads of holes around the edge of the circle, bit of cord through it and gather it all together, and just makes a nice little pouch This one's Matthew's. Mine's currently empty. We used it all up on the last trip, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So basically, in here, as you can see, it will hold quite a lot.
Yeah, that's not full.
So in there,
I've got birch bark.
there's full birch bark. Basically, all this is just pieces of birch bark. As you can see, sort of the outside of what it would look like on the tree. And then when you peel it off, it has the resinous, rusty brown colour on the back side.
You can see that.
And that's where the sap of the tree would be, in that layer. And if right, show an example, if it'll show on video. If I light it with a lighter,
Yeah, the crackle. That's the resin
That's
in
the
the
resin.
bark.
ooh, no, bad idea.
And then
And you make mistakes like that.
what you can do is you can scrape it with the knife like that, obviously on a flat surface, but I'm just showing you as an example. You can scrape it like this and it'll create tiny little bits of sawdust which still contain that resin. So it just helps you a little bit more, you know, to get the fire going if you want to do that, or you could just leave it as it is.
So yeah, in the words of Scrambled O, it's a hag. Look at him curls, boy.
Look at him go.
Look at him curls, boy. But yeah, so plenty of different techniques. Now, this is one of the fire lays that Matthew's just about to show you here, that we again use.
Use it all the time.
Pretty much all the time. We know it's a go-to build that again is reliable. It works. This is why with this fire lay, to get pretty much evenly cut pieces that are the same sort of thickness and size helps. Then in the centre of that you would then put all your curls in the bottom and fill that inner space up. Just move that out a little bit. Just kind of show for as an example.
Yep.
And then you would pop in there a load of curls like that. Okay, so you've got fuel in the centre.
And then what you would do after that is get your thinner or the smallest sticks or twigs that you've got, and then just rest them over the top like that.
Some smaller ones just sticking out, okay. Matt's kind of gone a bit OTT with his pieces, but
Yeah,
it's absolutely fine.
We haven't got you know.
Then
Very
what you
small
would
bits.
then what you would do, okay, is then get one of your cotton balls, take it out of the bag, tease it out, poke it in, and then light it either with a fire striker or a lighter, depending on how much you want to cheat. We have one of the rocket ones because they tend to be more powerful, resist the wind a little bit better. So again, in your fire kit, have a lighter. Why not? It can get you out of a bind, it can get you out of a sticky situation. Then it's your choice then to use it or not. Most of the time we don't. I don't have it in my fire lighting kit. I have it in a pocket on my sleeve. Then I know I've always got it wherever my coat is. I am, because I always wear this. I've got a lighter. In fact, I've got two. I've got a lighter and a backup lighter, and I think you have in your coat as well, don't you?
Yeah. So. same
And
coat.
again, I was just using the Mora Companion that we've shown in a previous video. It's the thinner version, but yeah, we were using that just to scrape the wood off with, but just to show that we do still use Mora. We still use the Mora knife. We don't always go to the Condor, but the Condor's like my little baby. I love using it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the Mora. We do use it. That's Matt's I've just rubbed. Okay, right. So should we get cracking and show an example of how we can get it all in, lit,
Yeah.
and going? Yeah. So,
Take your lid off first. No.
does help. We're going to use the chimney here just because it's a wet day. We're in the garden. We're away from the fire pit, which is open. We're kind of under my little shelter that I've built here. Well, it's not so little, but so Matt's doing the same build that he's just done outside on the floor, doing that inside the chimney here. And again, once you've dug a bit of a hole and you've got through the surface duff, which is all the pine needles and detritus that's on the floor, you scrape all that away, make a bit of an indentation, dig a little bit of a pit till you get down to the soil. When you've got down to the soil, we tend to go a little bit further, and then you can use all that spare soil, loose soil that you've dug up, to go around the edges, just to cover that top layer, top edge of duff that you've kind of cut through with the spade.
And usually if you go deep enough, there's clay as well.
There is in the UK a lot of clay in most places, but whatever we've dug up, we then pat around the sides, just to kind of have the soil then protect so it doesn't spread through roots, etc. If you do have roots in the ground, just cut them off. They're not going to hurt the tree. You know, trees are massive. Just by cutting a few of the roots away isn't going to create any damage. A lot of people will say, line it with rocks. We say, don't line it with rocks if you can't identify what type of stone it is. Basically, in the UK, there's a lot of sandstone. If you use
slate.
If you use sandstone or any kind of slatey type material, as you're lining for your fire, they will, I guarantee you, explode.
Any rock that's got layers, compressed layers or air pockets in them, like sandstone, it's a very porous stone.
It'll take up a lot of moisture.
Yeah, so it will absorb a lot of moisture, and what will happen is if you rapidly heat those rocks up on a fire,
the moisture needs somewhere to go, so it builds up
the
pressure.
The pressure builds up in the stone, and it will blow up.
And it goes off like a grenade. Seriously, it is lethal. So try not to line your fire pit with stones. It's not worth it. It really, really isn't. We found by cutting down big logs, big branch logs, and I'm talking like sort of that, you know, a good 6 to 8 inches in diameter. You cut a few of those off a dead down tree and line the top of your fire with that, bank up the soil on the inside of the fire to the top of your log so you've got it nice and high. We find that serves the purpose fine for a good 2 to 3 nights stay. Absolutely fine, and you don't need to be building big bonfires. We're not burning Guy Fawkes, even though it's that time of year. You know, when you're having a fire, it's just for boiling water, and it's just for cooking food. You know, if you need something a little bit bigger to keep warm at night, you can always expand the cooking fire that you've used. But to start off with, try and keep your fire small. It makes a smaller scar on the earth, in the ground. It's easier to cover over. Another good way of hiding where you've had your fire, by digging down in the soil, means that when you're all done and finished and you're about to leave the area, you can bury all what you've dug. As long as you've poured water on it and it's out, you can then cover it back over with earth, sling your logs away, and you're good to go. And you are then only leaving footprints and memories, which is exactly how it should be. But Matt's just made the sort of crisscross lay. He's now putting in the curls and some slightly, you know, thicker bits, a bit like that, which would represent your twigs. You want a bit of birch bark in it, or?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
And you pop a bit of birch bark in, not a lot, but just enough, just to kind of, it's added fuel, it's natural accelerant. If it's there in the environment you're in, it's dry, go ahead and use it. But pointless not using it, wouldn't it, right? And now he's going to get one of the cotton balls.
I've put one right at the bottom, and I'm going to put one right at the top as well.
So you've got a bottom source of fuel, and that should then ignite through the bits and bobs of sticks you've got, wood, help ignite the top one, which will then ignite some of the bigger stuff on the outside. And it all then just kind of builds a combination. It's a bit like a recipe, like making a cake. It's dead easy. Start from the bottom, you work your way up building wise, and then...
And I think this fire lay is called a... is it trapeze fire lay?
I don't think so.
Or pyramid fire lay?
Might be a pyramid fire lay.
something like that.
We have done an upside down fire lay as well, which is instead of, you know, putting all your bits and bobs at the bottom, you basically build it up to the top and put all your stuff on the top, and it then burns down through the fuel. But again, that's for another video. It's a bit more complicated. You sure you'll be able to get in and light it with that, yeah?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've actually...
It's actually got quite a sharp edge on it. Give it a go, see what happens. If not, and because we're out here, we'll just probably use the lighter and cheat. We'll give it a go with that first. If you can pull the ferro rod back, you can always use one of the other ones off the knives. It's up to you.
You know what? I really don't like them. So.
No, it's fine. It's your choice. Do you want me to come in a bit closer?
Yeah, bring the camera closer and then...
Okay.
This might fail, but, you know, might end up throwing it everywhere.
Which does happen. Yeah, just going to show you in there kind of what he's got, so you can see he's got his build, and then you've got the cotton ball in the top.
Hold on. Just about the camera. There you go. You can see that there. Got the cotton ball in the top. And I've got one in the bottom.
You just see it there, white at the bottom. Yeah. Cool. My camera skills aren't the best. Might not have a lot of room. Don't use the blade. You'll knacker your ferrous, your steel up, and you'll also knacker your belt blade as well.
Ooh,
there you go. Brilliant. Second strike. Awesome. There you go. And we're now going. Just
you
grab
should.
some smaller bits.
You should just be able to leave it for a minute.
As long as there's enough fuel.
And you just stick
Put
some
some of them on.
Yeah, and whatever you've got left from what you prepared earlier,
Just sling on.
you just stick on.
Okay. Excuse me.
It was as simple and easy as that.
Hi guys, this is the section that we referred to with regards to the cotton balls and petroleum jelly. These again are what we use for our main fire starter. Never let you down, never fail. Okay, so you just tease apart a simple cotton ball. Not too much, you don't want to rip it to pieces. Just kind of tease it apart like that. Okay. With your fingers, the icky bit, go into the petroleum jelly. So you've got it on your fingers, and then you're just looking to rub it in to the cotton ball. Just like that. You just massage it in. Really simple, really easy, just really messy. And literally as simple as that. I'll do one more. So you just get your cotton ball, tease it apart a bit, in with your fingers, and you're sort of just looking to kind of coat the end of your fingers, okay, and just rub it around like that. Massage it in. The heat of your fingers kind of liquefies it a little bit as well. If you don't think you've got quite enough, just go back in and grab a bit more. I'll just rub it in.
get it into those fibres, and then again just roll it back up into a ball. And we just use like a change money bag. It's just easy, it's small, fits in the little fire tin. There you go. When you need to come to use them, as Matt showed before making a fire, you just tease them apart, strike your fire striker, your ferrocerium rod, boom, away you go, fire. And it should last a good minute, minute and a half of flame to help you then assist get a fire started. Okay.
Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. We do we do respond to comments, so please feel free to comment. We do also have a Patreon page, and the link to that is down in the comments. Okay, cheers, thanks.